So, Stuart,
Yes, Mike.
we're not alone in this universe.
I had a feeling we weren't because you're right here with me, Mike.
Fair enough, fair enough. Um, it's this just popped into my head recently, and it's something that's a very short thing that happened to me about, I don't know, like 15-ish years ago. I was working in an office, and someone came up to me and said exactly that.
The following program is presented for general information, education and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to be advice of any kind. The content, views, thoughts and opinions expressed in this program are those of the individuals involved. The use of information on this program is at the user's own discretion.
Now, first, let me tell you, I never talked about, nor do I currently talk about ETs or UFOs in my professional environment or setting. Never have. And there's no reason for this to have even, I didn't prompt this. This is not solicited. This person would never have known my interest in the topic. Anyway, they come up and they're just like, Mike, I want you to know we're not alone in this universe. And I stopped what I was doing and I was like, look up, and I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And they simply said, I just wanted you to know that. And then they turned and proceeded to their office and like nothing ever happened. And I was thinking like, whoa, what's that all about? That was pretty strange. And then it didn't take long for me to realize like, oh wow, this is a pretty freaking profound statement from this person, because I know what their connections are, and potentially this statement was coming from someone very, very high up in NASA at the time. And for them to just say what they said to me, again, unsolicited, it was a little profound moment, actually, that I wasn't expecting.
That's very provocative. Where were you working then, is what I want to ask.
So I want to be general because the folks that I'm talking about are, I believe they're still around. I hope they're still around. They are retired, have been for a while, but I don't want to, the position that was held at NASA that we're talking about here is so specific. I don't want to be able to have anyone trace it back. So I unfortunately have to be a little bit cagey on it. But I was in the Pasadena area working in a professional office setting, as it were. And, it was just not something that would ever come forward in the course of my day there.
Now, were you an investigator? Were you a MUFON investigator at that point or not?
I was not at that point. I was considering it. That's a interesting story that I will maybe tell at a later time, but I wasn't a MUFON investigator at that time. However, at that time, I was considering becoming one. There's a reason that I didn't, but I'm not ready to talk about that yet. I don't know. It sounds... okay. It's just getting too cagey. Anyway,
that's all right, Mike. But it must have. Well, if that's the case, it must have felt like a synchronicity, like a prompt. Yes, I'm on the right path. Did it feel like that?
Well, I up until you just said that, I'd never considered it. Possibly that could have been something very interesting.
That's very, very cool.
But anywho, welcome one and all, wherever and whenever you may be. This is Universal Disclosure, Meeting the Moment. My name is Mike, an active UFO field investigator in Southern California, with my friend and co-host,
Reverend Stu in Melbourne, Australia.
And I wanted to just check in with you today, Stuart. Want to see how you're going. I've got a sort of a bullet point list of stuff to talk about with you, just to outline real quick so people sort of know where the conversation is going to potentially go. It's just us here today. But we've done this a couple times, and I like it just as much, quite frankly. I want to talk about the news cycle of UFO news, as it were. I want to talk about, who do you trust? What information can you trust? How do you potentially determine this? And see, like, for you personally, how has this podcast and all the conversations and interviews we've done, how has that affected you or changed you and your beliefs and such over, from then to now? Have they changed? And then perhaps talk about a couple of other interesting topics that are in line with everything that we do here.
Okay, that sounds cool. Now, I've been following this topic for a long time, even back in the Blockbuster video days when I used to borrow everything pertaining to this subject. So that's going right back. And there was so much information, and there's an increasing amount of information since those days, as you know. It's like an avalanche of information. I just reserve my judgment. I just listen and absorb. But the thing that guides me the most by far is my own personal direct experience.
Interesting. Okay, I want to delve into that a little bit more, but I want to sort of work up to that, if you will. And with what I just said in the beginning about, I'm in this office setting, and this person who's really well connected says this thing to me, and I'm like, what the hell? What am I to do with this? The generation before us, if you're out there and you've got something to say, please speak it out loud, and please put it on the record, whether it's here or somewhere else. It's really important that happen, because there's people out there who, they potentially have information of some kind that if you don't say it out, I don't. You get it, right?
Yeah, well, in the past, it was far more difficult to come forward with information like that, but it seems to be a bit easier now because of people's receptivity. I mean, I know there's still clearances and everything people have to be careful about, but I think there's an audience of people who are interested in this topic.
Oh, there absolutely is, for sure, without a doubt. I mean, it's the most fascinating topic there ever is going to be to talk about. And just real quick, of course, if you're, you don't have to have had any type of clearances or secretive knowledge or whatnot. If you've seen something or experienced something, report it to MUFON at MUFON.com or SoCalMUFON.com, which is my local chapter. And someone will actually reach out to you and talk with you about it if you want to talk about it. Hopefully you do. That's why you would report it. And, have it investigated, as it were, if it's a sighting, or just have somebody listen to you if it's like an experience or an encounter or something to that effect. So that's just wanted to give that little plug out there too. But with the idea of the generations before us, sadly, I have to say that we here in SoCal have lost another team member here, and her name was Dr. Chantal Toporow. She was a credentialed doctor of engineering, and she worked with some pretty well-known folks, and she had a clearance, and she worked on stuff that she couldn't really talk about. But I heard some bits and pieces of stories here and there that were pretty wild and jaw-dropping in nature. I did want to bring her into our conversations here, but unfortunately, we never got the opportunity. But there was I want to put up like a 13-minute clip of Chantal talking to a room full of scientists, because I think that what she has to say, what she had said, is very important, that everybody needs to hear, whether you're a ufologist as well, if you're a journalist, if you're a researcher, or anyone just opened or interested in this topic. What she says is very, very important, and I think that the world needs to hear it.
Okay, Mike, I'm definitely interested in that. And I want to express my condolences for the passing of your friend. Very sorry to hear that. This sounds like the exact sort of person we would have enjoyed having on the show.
Yeah, I think we would have ultimately had an amazing conversation. So let's break out into that real quick. And it's about 13 minutes or so, and then we'll be back talking about that, and then some other stuff as well, such as like the news cycle and who to trust and such like that. But for the moment, this is a clip of my friend, Dr. Chantal Toporow.
Thank you so much, and welcome to the final stretch of the conference. I was asked to do a brief introduction to today's talks for this afternoon. And so it's pretty much, I think the expression is apple pie and motherhood kind of things. But I think they're very important. And I really want you to focus on this image, which I think is very powerful. And the image was made by Camille Flammarion, who ended up doing a very large book, sale of books and publisher. And I found out, I was thinking about him, and I thought, Flammarion, such a huge publication in France. And I remember I was like 13 or 14, and I had these books. They were red paperbacks. J'ai lu, I have read. And they were on the soucoupe volant, the flying saucers, and all the mystery things. And then I looked, and it turns out it was the J'ai lu section was actually from Flammarion. It was a publication from it. And it turns out that Camille Flammarion was really quite a maverick himself. And this is why I love this, because he represented that what we need to do as a maverick, we need to stick our heads out. You know, and I was just learning about I started a course on the spiritual meaning of like the Kabbalah and the letters. And then it was saying, you know, there's the reality, there's our world, and then there's 5 other layers. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I should play with this image and then add the other 5 layers of the Kabbalah, and then the 10 Sephirats that are inside, and then the 10 and the 10, because I think we can find hidden meaning, and I'm really big on interdisciplinary cross-pollination to get this over into an area that we can understand. And we are maverick science, so what we need to do really is, you know, I mean, wouldn't this be terrific? You have the operating table, and then you have another set of people who are helping the operation by making sure, you know, the person is you know, it's quite a fantasy, and it's obviously a cartoon, but we need to expand our mind. And so I think it's very important that the research scientist knows that the SSC is here for you, so that when you go ahead and try to do a new setup of experiment, when you come to present, we're not going to be throwing tomatoes at you. We're going to give you constructive criticism. We can help you, you know, maybe your control systems aren't well defined, or your protocols. And so we come to these meetings, we meet people, and we cross-pollinate within ourselves to make the research stronger by having different eyes looking at it. You know, for our students, we want to encourage them, because it's already so difficult for to be doing research in this area. And we want to get the non-scientists involved, because we want those other, and most important, you know, to the policymaker, that the anomaly will become tomorrow's technology. So this is the heart of what I want to bring to you today. And it's just, I get very emotional. If science is to pursue an understanding and utilization of the processes of science that we've developed, it needs to expand its current paradigm. And that means we need to stick our head out of our present reality. And Bob, John, and Brenda started this Academy of Consciousness. It was in 1991. And at the 1994 convocation, Bob gave some marching orders. He said, create a complementarity by nurturing the science of the subjective, so that both objective and subjective perspective work alongside each other in such a way that it is acknowledging and utilizing the innate consciousness strategies of association and assimilation to achieve a unity of self and not self in search for a participatory role in the mechanics of creation. And then in 2011, they did a video, which is online, and I encourage each and every one of you for homework to go and look at this video, because it's really having to do with it grounds us. This is a way to ground ourselves as we go forward.
Is that the link?
Yes, that's the link, yeah. And you can always email me, and I can send you the link if you don't catch it. You know, something's really interesting in science, that the science that we've developed, is that we've got 2 sets of laws. And I was at the Parapsychology Association meeting in London years ago, and there was a lawyer that showed up. And that's why I say, again, this interdisciplinary thing is so good. And he presented his work on the difference between what is valid in a court of law is not valid in a court of science. And so we've got like 2 sets of books to make our decisions. So I think part of the maverick science is also looking at how we determine, you know, whether it's a guilty party, you're not a maverick, you're bogus. kind of a thing. So I think it's really important to really look at this and see how we are evolving as a society, and the rules, because we all live by law and by rules. This is a quote from my teacher, and it's why I wanted to do this session, because of Bob and Brenda and the marching orders, but also this, because I think we're as scientists, we've been brought up in this objective methodology, and we're falling short. We do not see the whole. And scientists, despite their conclusions, are still very far from creating a full-fledged theory of dimensions, because in the study and description of the higher dimensions, they use the tools of the world in the third dimensions and the five sense perceptions. It is like chasing the horizon. The faster we get closer to it, the faster it moves away from us. Again, this is the law of nature. In order to break through to higher dimensions, you need at least to go beyond the limits of your own perception. It is impossible to pull yourself out of the swamp by your bootstraps. To overcome these obstacles, methods are needed that would seem to a scientist to be completely unscientific. And our next presenter, Dr. Olga Strahan, she will be talking about her work, and she's really, and many people here are the ones who are sticking their necks out, and they may, some people may not have data to present, and I think in our neutrino presentation, we saw that it's a work in progress. There's no data yet, but it's theory, and we need to move forward. And we're operating, Olga says here, we've got everything in functions under two sets of the laws of nature. One is in the solid, the X, Y, Z, and time, and the other one is in these other worlds. This is the subtle energy and everything else that we are trying to do. And, our ignorance of this world beyond what we can see with our own eyes has kept us deprived of vital information we cannot afford to ignore. So everyone, please start sticking your neck out. And, we get so caught up in semantics. Call them worlds, dimensions, frontiers, whatever. We need to stick out our own necks and experience it directly, rather than safely and objectively observing it from the inside. So how do we do this? How do we go, we're stuck here, and how do we, this is just a graphic, but to kind of give you the flavor. And here we are, all of us, we've got this elephant, and we're all see the world as we want to see it, and we don't see the elephant. It was nice somebody today mentioned the elephant. There it is. So we need to see the whole, and I think I always want to pay homage to Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, because he started to lay out the foundation for incorporating a subjective science, but unfortunately materialism took over. And it was very clear, he said, for him this implied that we must refine ourselves as instruments of knowing in the careful and extensive interaction with concrete phenomena. And that progress in science depends on the development of inner capabilities and sensibilities. And I was thinking about yesterday about our panel on the Maverick Science, and a concluding statement that I did not, was not said, that I wanted to say is, we need to develop our instrument that we've been given. And so this is really we need to shift this emphasis from a focus of learning facts and theories to developing capabilities. And I'm so encouraged to see so many of you trying to do the remote viewing yourself, trying to understand, communicate with dead people or whatever that you're doing, looking in the sky for UFOs or what, because you are doing exactly that. You are engaging. And so what I'm asking all of you, please, is to put yourself in the experiment, because we know that we, as the scientists, affect the results. So let's not just tiptoe around it, just go right into it, you know? For us to understand the inexplicable, the anomalous, the paranormal, we must do more than observe. And we need to experience it and put ourselves and, try out, learn how to do out of body, learn how to do dowsing, learn how to do remote viewing, learn how to do hands-on healing, communicate with the deceased, telekinesis. This is really what I'm really encouraging. And again, to go beyond the 4 dimensions and to go past the 5 sense perceptions. So on that note, I'd like to conclude and pass the microphone. You can always, for questions, for the sake of time, I want to put the questions. I'm approachable. You've got my email. You want my phone number, I give it to you. And we can continue this conversation. But for the sake of time, I just wanted to keep my introduction really short. So thank you so much.
So yeah, Stuart, I felt like the world needs to hear Chantal's words.
Mike, that was amazing. And it reminded me of a Nikola Tesla quote. It goes, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than all the previous centuries of its existence."
Wow.
I really enjoyed that video. What an amazing person. That's my sort of person. Wow, I wish I'd gotten to meet her.
Yeah, she was really special. I had the sort of privilege to carpool out to and from Contact in the Desert in 2024, I believe it was, not this year, but the last year before that. And it was about a 2.5 to 3 hour car ride each way, and we had, oh my God, amazing conversations along the way. And I miss her already. I mean, it was like, it's super important for the the older generations, as it were, to speak it out loud, please, and come forward.
Now, I like that whole Maverick talk. I guess the audience would have been somewhat receptive to her message. Now, who were those people that she was addressing there?
I honestly don't know too much about that event, but I know, generally speaking, that was a group of scientists. This is my own words, and hopefully I get this right. Okay, no disrespect if you're part of this and I'm getting it wrong. I apologize in advance. But it's a group of scientists, doctors, like, really, really smart folks who get together and are open to exploring the stuff that you can't measure, the esoteric stuff as well, and trying to incorporate that into science, as it were.
The whole scientific method is about being open to exploring new frontiers, and they're really the creative people. It's hard to articulate, but I don't want to be harsh here, but if you're not following where the evidence is leading, then are you really a scientist at all?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and I think I feel the vibration of that, as it were. It's as weird as that sounds to say, but yeah, like, there's a lot of scientists out there who are just so hard-headed where they will not even be open to anything at all that's not in their little box or whatever, and they're comfortable on their laurels or whatever. But especially for the younger folks, I know that there are some younger scientists who do tune into this on a regular basis. So for you folks out there, please take that to heart as well, and always remain open, and just wherever it goes, it goes.
I heard her mention so many things I've researched in the esoteric field, like Gurdjieff, out-of-body experience, Kabbalah. It was amazing. I can tell she was very highly informed.
Yeah, so I did mention this in an article that I had sent into our local website as well. On the way out there, one of the things that we were talking about, she told me a story about how she was working with Dr. Hal Puthoff, and she couldn't really go into a whole lot of detail, but she said that he was talking. This is going back a long time ago, when remote viewing was sort of, it wasn't even public, really. I believe they were doing it, but the world at large didn't know about it. And she was talking to him and basically said, like, well, prove it. So the next day, he shows up at the table or whatever and puts down an envelope on the table, and she opens it up and she looked at it and she's like, there is no way that he could have come up with any of this. She's like, what he did was he looked at a document inside of a locked file cabinet inside of a locked room that had, I believe, an armed guard, but at least a security guard for sure at that door. And this was also after you get through the front entrance. So like, there's no way someone could have like broke into this office and looked at this document. And he produced enough information about that document to show Chantal that remote viewing absolutely is a thing. It's real. It can be done. And, you know.
Well, I remember reading in Ingo Swann's book, which is called Penetration, that he was working with Hal Puthoff developing those protocols. And Ingo's version of remote viewing was actually involved out-of-body experience. He'd leave his body, go and view the remote location, which could be another planet. It's a fascinating book, Mike. So I understand why she's referring to those kind of topics and that kind of phenomena. Now, I want to mention something else I've been meaning to say to you, Mike. For a long time, I was hearing about the intelligence community being interested in this esotericism. And I thought it was very, very strange at first because I thought, well, intelligence are about hard facts, you know, what can be proven. And they're also pursuing these esoteric pathways. I didn't seem to reconcile, but much later, I have met some people from the intelligence community, and I'm not connected to the intelligence community, by the way. But they would talk to me about these esoteric topics because they knew I was into it. And it started to make sense. And what you're saying here correlates with what I was hearing too.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. One other thing that, not all of it, right, but one of the other things that we did talk about was how she mentioned, and I have heard this before, and I think you mentioned it to me as well, but you know, it's just another corroboration, as it were. Like, law enforcement has and continues to use remote viewers on a regular basis for missing person cases or cases that are really hard to impossible to solve, but they're never ever going to say it out loud because of the woo aspect of it. But it frickin' works, and if gosh darn law enforcement is using that, you know, there's something to it. That's all, you know.
All right, I got one for you on this one, Mike. I know someone in this country who does that work and has told me about cases, and the information that they came up with is absolutely fascinating. So that lady gets reached out to on occasion for that kind of work. And if I can invite her onto the show, would you be up for that, Mike?
I absolutely would. In fact, I would, if they're open to it, I'd love to do like a sort of a live demonstration of it as well. If that person's open to it, or we can just have a general conversation about it. But just to put it out there, because Joe Rogan recently had something, he was talking about remote viewing and such. Now, he ultimately corrected himself, or the information revealed itself, but in the beginning, he was of the mind that, oh, well, if I tell you to go look for this thing, you're going to produce information that is like whatever you think it is. But with remote viewing, the viewer is tasked with something. It's a blind target. They have absolutely no idea what they're looking at. As I understand it, they're assigned a set of coordinates, like 4 numbers with a dash and 4 numbers, and those are random numbers that you come up with, and then you assign that's the target for the viewer to look at. And then there's an interviewer who potentially asks them questions like, okay, look to the, and this is all written out, like it's not like they're actually seeing, as it were. It's a little bit of a strange term, but like, look to the north, what do you see? Okay, turn to the east, what do you see? What do you smell? And then they'll write out the impressions that they're getting. A lot of times I believe they're also in a sort of like a meditative state or something. But anyway, let's leave that to the other episode, I guess. If we can do that, that would be freaking awesome. I'm so interested in that.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I'll approach that person.
All right, sorry. Just obviously, I'm very interested in that topic there too. But nonetheless, another thing I wanted to talk to you about is like the news cycle, right? Because it seems like every day there's a new podcast out about, you know, the UFO topic, and I love it. All podcasters out there, it's a grind. I now see that for sure. It's a lot of work to do. You know, we don't make a living at it. We just do this on our free time, as it were. But for those folks who'd like do it every day or something like that, God bless you. Thank you for your work. But with that said, there's a cycle of news where something will come out, and even if it's like breaking bombshell stuff, which I'm kind of getting tired of personally, but anyway, it takes a long time for that to go around the different spheres, because as open as the internet is, anyone can talk to anyone, anyone can have their own show, yada yada. It takes a long time for the information to be disseminated around, simply because. Any thoughts on that, Stuart?
Yeah, there's always new information coming around. There's extrapolations too. I'm sometimes put off by the people that are super confident. Mike, it's definitely 2027. That's when it's all happening. Because from the esoteric community and even the Christian community, there's all these prophecies that come and go. I've just seen and heard it all. You know what I mean? So when I hear it's definitely this date, I'm immediately skeptical. I'm sorry, Mike, but I hear what you're saying. And the latest one down here is you're probably seeing about this craft coming in, alien craft. Oh, we've got pictures of it now. Like, it's just getting more and more sensationalized, and I'm just staying calm. I don't know what the intention is, whether people are trying to scare people, whether they're trying to get clicks, what the motive is, but I try and stay zen about this stuff. I'm interested, but detached. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah, I'm right there with you with the sensational aspect and the fear aspect. And I mean, I could go on and on and on about it. I mean, we did talk to Tony Ghazi in our last episode with the Mantis, and we did ask him about that. And I thought what the Mantis had to say was pretty darn interesting. So if that sounds interesting to you, go check out that episode as well and hear it from the. I know it sounds weird. Hear it from the Mantis directly. I do believe that that's who we talked to, but as I said in that episode too, you don't have to believe that's who it is, but just listen to the information. Anyway, the point is, I agree with you. I don't think the world is going to end in 2026 or 2027 or 2028 or any time in my lifetime, quite frankly. I don't believe that at all. Hold on a second. Sorry, I just had a cough there, so I muted, and I'll just snip that out. I mean, there's certainly people out there who are dead set that something is going to happen. All right, yeah. So I've got this. I came up with that on my own, but I can't take credit for it because it sounds to me like Jacques Vallée came up with this like 50 years ago. But it was pretty wild for that to all happen. Anyway, it goes something like this: if I disbelieve that nothing, I'm not saying that right. If I disbelieve that anything is going to happen in terms of the end of the world or the coming of Christ or whatever in the year 2026 or 2027, if I don't believe it, it's not going to happen for me. If you believe it, Stuart, and if you believe it enough, it will happen for you. In which case, then you will at some point sort of float out of my life, and we would lose track of each other and potentially go into like a split. Like, there's this theory that there's an infinite number of parallel realities, and there's an infinite number of me's and an infinite number of you's, and whatever you put your attention on, I mean, I don't know if that's coming out correctly, but that's freaking wild. It's like a brain explosion, but that's an interesting theory of what could possibly be. So if that's true, then believe whatever you want and it will come true.
Well, I kind of get that because we are manifesting our reality collectively. That's what I believe. And there's also that thing I referenced in the past, Mike, and I'm a fan of Whitley Strieber's work, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about an occurrence where different people saw different things during the one encounter. So there were numerous witnesses, but they had different accounts. And one person, it was a witness, didn't see anything. So their mind had blocked it from their reality.
That's pretty wild. It's somewhat common too when you have a group of people who sort of see the same thing or experience the same thing. They all sort of perceive it differently through as we say frequently, through their lens, right? What makes sense to them. So with that, Stuart, I think that's a great lead up to who do you trust, Stuart? Who do you trust? How do you determine what of all of this weird and wonderful information is worthy of your time, or what's real, what's not? How do you figure that out?
Oh, okay, Mike. So I'm going to talk personally now. So I'm not going to give anyone guidance on what they should believe, but I've been following this topic we're talking about since the Blockbuster video days. Now, I used to go and borrow every video pertaining to this subject and watch it. And prior to that, I'd go to the library and find these subjects. So it's a long time I've been following this. And there was a point I remember I was thinking, it's just so overwhelming. It's like a tidal wave of information. How do I filter out what's true, what's false? The thing that guides me the most is my own personal experience, especially when that personal experience correlates with other people's experience. Now, I haven't mentioned too many of the things that have happened to me, but one of the things that I will talk about again is the out of body experience, which I've done more than once. So a few people told me it was real. And I was doubtful. It was about the fourth person that told me it was real before I started to get some books on how to do it. I read in the books how to achieve this outcome, and I was able to do it. So there was a repeatable, almost scientific basis to this. So when I had the experience more than once, I saw myself laying on the bed, my own body. I thought, okay, this is a real thing. For me, I mean, I'm hearing from other people, I'm able to do it. So that for me was very compelling. And the next thought I had was, well, what else is real? What else that I'm not hearing about is real? So that also expanded my consciousness in that way. But doesn't mean that I'm gullible, Mike. Doesn't mean I believe everything everyone says. But things like that, where I can see and experience for myself, are very compelling to me.
Okay. So then, how do you know or um, determine or discern if you're hearing something that isn't true? Let's say, okay, so I mean, and I've said it before too. So I have had the out of body things as well, multiple times myself. So I'm right there with you. Like, yeah, that's true.
Hmm.
But for let's take something like, oh gosh, I don't know. I don't want to necessarily pick on Dr. Greer, as it were, but let's be a healthy conversation, like, because I am skeptical of the CE5 thing. I've tried it a couple times myself. Interesting things happen, but not quite what as described. Anyway, how do you determine, like, if it's like, let's say somebody says that they can just call out to the craft, calling occupants of interplanetary craft, right? Karen Carpenter, I think that was. How do you determine, like, the genuine folks from the people who maybe just want to make a buck in terms of like a sideshow at a circus or something?
All right, there's a YouTube video which you might be able to put a link to down below. I think it was on NBC. There's a gentleman who calls himself Prophet Yahweh, and he calls in some
Mm.
craft while the news people are there videoing it, and the reporter's like, I've just seen it with my own eyes. So there's something going on there. I've been to those CE5 events too, and they've been fun. The main reason I go is to talk up esoteric information and explore those topics with other people that are there. And you do see some things in the sky, but I didn't find it particularly compelling. Um, I also wanted to mention this too, speaking about doctors. So that video we just watched with your friend who's recently passed away made me remember that there's a doctor friend of mine who I'm very close to who told me more than one patient has mentioned to him about floating over their body on the operating table, and he was surprised by how many. Now, it was only when I broached the subject with him that he started talking about that. And that made me wonder how much other anecdotal information is out there, Mike. Like, how many people aren't talking? That harkens back to
Mm.
what you said earlier about the people from previous generations. They need to speak up. So, if everybody was speaking up, then there'd be a lot more information and we could correlate a lot more experiences. So, it wouldn't be so much in the shadows.
Yeah. Okay. So with the thing with your doctor friend who was a doctor, like a medical doctor, as it were, right? It's
Yeah.
different than um, intellectual doctor, but nonetheless, still respect to all of them. But I have to wonder if is it could it be, and this is not. Don't get me wrong, and don't try this at home. But like, could it be like the anesthesia might help trigger the out of body experience? Now, when I've had mine, and I'm guessing when you had yours, it had nothing to do with doctors or operations or anything like that. But I wonder if anesthetics might have something to do with triggering whatever is in our selves that would create or propel the out of body experience.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because in the accounts that the doctor was telling me about, there were medical procedures involved. You're right. So, but in the case of my out-of-body experiences, there weren't. I was simply laying in my bed. So I read the protocols and I just used them, utilized them. And it took a bit of effort, a bit of focus, a bit of concentration. And this also correlates to what you were talking about earlier. I manifested that reality. So, and I tell you, Mike, the most compelling thing for me was looking back in the bed and seeing my own body laying in the bed. It's super compelling. It's like it's so apparent. It's like you're looking at somebody else, only that's you. Um, See, and this is also the very basis of Gnosticism. So, direct personal experiential knowledge. So it means you seek an experience, you see for yourself. No one's got to explain it to you. There's a scene in that movie called Doctor Strange where the shaman initiates the experience for Doctor Strange, and that's the point where he turns around and says to the guru, "Teach me." You know, he's compelled to learn because he's had a direct personal experience, and you can't really beat the power of those sort of things, Mike. Those occurrences.
Okay, so glad you said all that because here's the thing too, and the reason I'm asking you this question is more for the sake of the folks out there tuning in, but also I wanted to legitimately hear what you have to say, right? But with everything that you just said, there is a lot of people out there who have not had any experiences and
Mm.
they're yet still interested in this. And if they haven't had their own experience, they have nothing to draw upon. So I want to go back to the original question in a second after this little detour. But one of the things I've discovered as we've been doing this is that a lot of the podcasters who have like the more prominent, not I don't know, the channels that get tons and tons of views immediately are we're already in the podcasting world or the YouTube world or whatever, and they already have like their follower base built up before they got into the UFO conversation, as it were, and I'm of the mind, I don't know for sure because I've not really talked to any of them, but my gut tells me an overwhelming majority of them have not had their own experiences. So therefore, that's why they're talking about the news and they're propelling the news and they're rightfully skeptical, as they should be, of who to believe and who not to believe. And almost seems as though, and this is probably planted by the intelligence community, there's like infighting that's becoming more prevalent to me, that I'm just like backing off of all other channels listening to them because it's like I don't want to get pulled down that road. Like, we're here to talk about what's important. Or underneath the surface, as it were. Like I almost feel like a lot of the other channels are getting stuck in the circular conversation of the superficial, and you got to dig deeper. But anyway, I don't mean any disrespect because I do appreciate everyone who puts any energy into this topic. But with that said, with the idea that there's potentially people who are listening to us, our words right now, who haven't had their own direct personal knowledge, what would you say to them to, like, how do you determine which person to listen to or which information is correct or not?
All right. Well, I can tell you something from my own experience in the spiritual community. So, if the spiritual leader has a big ego, and see this, there's a parallel here with the YouTubers. If they've got a big ego, it's all going to be about them, you know. And some of these churches that I've been to, and other people are aware of it, the leader gets a really big ego, maybe gets a private jet or two, all
That's
those kind
very
of.
it's very man of God, right?
I know. I mean, I'm not saying that stuff's wrong, but just be careful. That's one of the first indicators for me. And sometimes it's more subtle. People seeking the limelight. Now, I'm a minister at a church. I don't feel like I'm seeking the limelight. I feel a compulsion to talk about these subjects to support people in a transparent, loving way. So but even I check my motives, Mike. I got to tell you, what am I doing this for? To make sure my ego's in check. And that's part of the spiritual journey. So I would say some of these people doing these podcasts may have had an experience. Now, I've heard about researchers who have had experiences that they don't want to talk about because they feel like they'll lose credentials if they do talk about that. There, there are people who feel a compulsion to follow this subject, like I have, and like I know you have for a long time. And it's not any ego thing. I didn't want to talk about this for a long time. When we started the show, I was reluctant even to talk about my own experiences. Now, the out of body experience I've been talking to people about for a long time in the esoteric community because it's 100% normal. Like, if you talk about that in an esoteric group, people are like, well, no kidding. We all know that it's almost passe. But delving outside of that into, say, this podcast felt a bit weird at first, but I'm okay about it. So I'm not talking about these subjects because I want to get attention. In fact, I'm very careful about what I talk about. And you can say, well, that's an ego thing, Stuart. You don't want to come and put all the cards on the table because you're worried about what people will think about you. Well, no, it's not only, it's not exactly that either. It's, if you go too far, people can just dismiss the whole thing. So we've both had the out-of-body experience, right? So we've got that base level where we can both agree, yes, we've both seen that, that's real. But if we go into other things, and there's been some sensitive things we've talked about on the podcast that people have never heard about, they might dismiss them out of hand. So it's a journey. I told you before, there's a parallel with my spiritual journey and this whole exploration into this topic. You've got to go carefully, slowly, incrementally. Otherwise, it's way too much to absorb.
Okay. So I wanted to say a couple of things real quick. First of all, when you were talking about, the big ego in the private jet of the minister or whatnot, it reminded me of the song, Would Jesus Wear a Rolex? I don't know if you've ever heard that song. It's really great. Somebody that I sort of know, Sharon McKnight, did a fantastic rendition of that song. Woke up this morning, turned on the TV set. There in living color was something I can't regret. A man was preaching at me, laying on the charm, selling me salvation with 10,000 on his arm. And it was a mockery of, the televangelist. Like, why would this guy with all the money have all the signs of wealth, be asking me for money, anyways, I just had to throw that out there. But so, I've seen UFOs a couple times, twice in my life. And, I've talked about that, I think, a little bit here and there. I've had, I don't know, potentially experiences, but those I don't get into because they're very fragmented and they're also very personal. But in our last episode, the mantis may have outed me in some way. I don't know though. I don't have any memories of grays, but I do have other weird memories that. Anyway, it was interesting that came out of nowhere in the last conversation. But for me, when I'm listening to something, the way that I'm right there with you, like a direct personal experience, but I also use my gut. There are people out there, I'm not going to name names, but there are people out there who just hearing them pisses me off. And if it does, then that's an indication to me that they are not truthful or whatever they're saying isn't quite correct. So that's kind of how I maneuver around this as well. But it's also, as an investigator, I probably have maybe, I don't mean to, it just is what it is, a larger knowledge base to draw from than like the people who are just kind of getting into this or just exploring it or whatever. So that would be my answer to that question is I use my gut a lot and similar to you with the direct personal experience element in terms of sifting out. And there are some people out there who are very, very well known in this community that I've become or becoming skeptical of or question their motives or authenticity. But I'm not here to call anybody out. It's important that anyone out there listening to anything use discernment. I mean, we've said that a bunch of times now. I may have come across from time to time as conviction, like, yes, this is real. Well, it's for me. This is my opinion is real for me. It doesn't mean it's going to be real for you. But at the end of the day, I guess my answer to that question would be figure it out for yourself, because that's what this is. It really is. It's for everyone's process of discovery. And although I do believe there is some universal truth that I personally haven't hit yet, I'm confident that everyone gets to the same place, but the way that they get there and the labels that they use and the way to describe it is slightly different based on your own personal experiences and belief systems.
Yeah, we see how there's a parallel with these spiritual leaders like gurus who have an amazing message but are getting up to no good behind the scenes. And I wanted to make a quick other observation too. There's a paradox here I'm aware of already as we're talking, right? So on one hand, we're saying, hey, just come forward with all your information, you older generation. Meanwhile, Mike and I aren't going to talk about everything we've experienced. So I kind of get it,
Or we're going to judge you behind your back and tell you if you're full of shit. No, I mean, that's the thing. This is yeah, good point. Fair statements.
It is tricky because I wondered about this too, right? With these secret societies. Now, also, I'm not a member of any secret society. I feel a compulsion to mention that because I don't actually like secrets, but I wondered, why is this information secret? Well, part of the reason it's secret is because it's so mind-blowing. Like, why is the UFO topic secret? Why can't we have disclosure? Why can't the secret societies come out and tell us what they know? Why can't the government come out and tell us what they know? So that's part of this too. Part of the reason it can't be revealed is because it's too mind-blowing. So you've got to take it one bit at a time. So this, I know I've mentioned this before, Mike, and it's a bit of a touchy subject, but I'm actually for a soft disclosure because it's you can't deal with the whole thing in one hit.
Okay, I am so on the fence on this one, man. I'm 100% agree with everything you just said. However, I am also kind of getting to the point where bring on catastrophic disclosure. Seriously. Like,
Right.
force the issue. And here's why. Because people aren't stupid. They will get through it. Yeah, there's a bunch of people who will have a hard time with it. And like you said, you can't have too much too soon, right? But at the end of the day, you gotta be exposed to it in order to be able to work it out anyway. And, we've talked to plenty of people who, when something happens, it takes them a long freaking time to recover from it. I mean, one of the things that happened to me that I'm not talking about took me a good 4 or 5 days to really settle in with, and I was questioning everything, even my own sanity and everything. I was able to power through and work and make like nothing was going on, but like it took a long freaking time to get through that. So, but I did, and take anything like a market crash, 2008. Well, we all got through that. A lot of people got shit on, and they went through bad times, but they recovered from it. And the same thing will happen. So one of the things that really irks me, and this has been talked about all over the place, is let's take the Bible, for example. There's books that were omitted. I think Representative Luna may have talked about this recently with Joe Rogan, if I remember correctly.
How interesting.
And she made a great point where it's like, let's say I'm that guy who decides what books are going in the Bible and what book. Who the hell am I to make that decision for you, to withhold information from you? No, I think everybody should have all the information, and then they figure it out for themselves. That's where I'm about. I don't know. So with that, since we've started this, Stuart, and until today, what's changed for you, if anything, and are you different now than you were before?
Yeah, I'm always changing. I'm always learning and absorbing new information. And, our relationship's an important thing to me, Mike. So I've really enjoyed doing this with you. And that's a big part of this formula. I can't overstate that. Yeah, it's a really beautiful thing to be on this journey with you. And it's an honor to talk to some of these guests and ask questions that I want to ask. Like, it's so amazing. Now, how have I changed? It's hard to gauge. What I want to work on is to become more loving, as simple as that. Just more open-hearted, more expressing my feelings in a genuine way. And you might think, what on earth's that got to do with ETs and UFOs? I just want to become more authentic, and that's a scary thing, right? So coming forward and saying I had all these experiences is part of this being authentic, and that's even a scary thing for me. We said that at the very start of this podcast, but I'm getting a bit braver about it. I hope I come through as sincere and authentic because I really am. I don't feel like I've got any agenda, but see, I monitor myself too. So if I'm feeling a certain way, I'll ask myself, is that how I really feel? What are my motives? So see what I mean, Mike? The topic just gets so broad. So when people come up, I might mention Christianity, right? And I thought, I don't want to be that guy that mentions that every single show. There goes Reverend Stewart again. He's got to bring that Christianity. He's got to bring Jesus into everything. You see what I mean? So I wanted to be careful about that's not my motive. I'm not pushing anything. I want to be more of a listener.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean, I'll tell you come across as authentic. Like, I've known you for a long time now, and you are who you are here and outside of here. And I love you for it. And I'm glad that you're on this journey with me as well. I truly, truly am. It's freaking awesome.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Because see, some of the things are challenging for me that come up on this topic, right? I'll tell you what one of them is, and it's come up a couple of times. I'm skeptical about what the intentions of the Greys are, but it might be fine. I mean, there's a lot of trauma involved that happened to abductees or contactees. So on the surface, it seems like a negative thing. But even with that, I'm trying to keep an open mind. So in my mind, I sometimes think about the thing, all things work for good and there are no mistakes. So I don't know, it's complicated. I'm telling you, Mike, this whole UFO thing, it borders into this whole esotericism. It's almost seamless. And that's why it was so beautiful that we watched that video you played earlier to see someone, a scientist, who was aware of that.
Yeah. I mean, my thought now isn't too different from what it was when we started, but there's a lot more information to consider. And we're not done, by the way. We're just having a conversation. We have other conversations already scheduled. But what I want to say is, and this is pretty wild, and it might be disturbing to some people. But I don't know if this is real or not. But what if, right? I've thought about this so many times. I've really long thought that, whether it's the Greys or some other non-human intelligence entity, I really did believe that they messed with the monkeys and created us. I really did. But with that said, I still also believe in God. So I'm not saying that the ETs would be God if that statement would be true. But the mantis seem to think that that's not the case, but we have a whole bunch of genetics from other people at other places. But, I don't know what I believe about that. Honestly, I don't know. So I'm not going, as a perfect example, we heard it last time. It sounded compelling, but I'm not taking it like as the absolute truth. I'm still stewing in it, actually. No pun intended. But
that's a perfect one, Mike. That's the perfect example because I'd read the Sumerian tablets for myself in English. I didn't read the stone tablets in cuneiform about them messing with our DNA, and it was very compelling. But that might not be true. See, because if there's this layer of some other entities trying to say, "I created you, so you're mine, you're subservient to me," then I can understand why somewhat that's not a positive thing. See, but there's a difference between our spirit and our body. So there's a lot of layers to this. So some things that seem paradoxical might not be mutually exclusive. So I just sort of file that away in the back of my mind. And if it comes up again, I think it's interesting, but I try not to get too attached to these ideas. And that's a Buddhist philosophy and a Christian one, by the way, not to get attached to these ideas or even this reality. So see, there I go. So I'm way off. I had to jump off the diving board there.
Ultimately, where I was going to go with that, where I am going with that, is like my thought, and it's kind of dark. I'm, I guess, okay or strong enough potentially to entertain this thought, but, and I don't mean to make it sound like a pompous ass or whatever, but there are people who might not be able to entertain this thought. But what if we were all a freaking experiment, and they're just coming back and messing with us and seeing what happens? Like that could be a thing. I don't know. That would be pretty wild and dark. But a couple years ago, I think I was out in Vegas just for a visit, and I was wearing a shirt that somebody gave me from Chimp Island, and it said 99.8% chimp. And one of the homeless guys on the bridges, there's walk bridges there. One of the homeless guys pointed at me like, he know where he come from.
Wow, that's amazing.
But I mean, really, like 0.2% away from and I don't believe we've evolved from them because what? They're the retarded chimps that didn't evolve yet. I mean, come on. Like, I don't. It's just weird how we're so close but yet so far away genetically. But anywho,
yeah, that's a whole new conversation. I think I've told you before, I view our experience here as basically like the cosmic version of the show Survivor. So we're that's what we're doing here. We've come down to put ourselves under stress and see what we're really made of. And it's really amazing, but it can be highly stressful when we're in it. So I think, yeah, I mean, I think we're playing this game.
Another dark thought that I've had was that once you actually figure out what we're trying to figure out here, that's when you're gone. Like, it's like, oh, he figured it out. Pull him out.
Boom. Yes.
So if that's true, maybe we should just stop what we're doing. I'm in no rush to go, even though I have plenty to complain about from time to time. Ultimately, I have a great life. But anywho, how about last thoughts for now until we'll be back at some point, not at some point, in a couple of weeks, as we typically are with another great person. But any last thoughts about what we just talked about right now?
Yeah, look, I want to say this, Mike, about authenticity. So when the
Yeah.
guests are on the show, I really feel their energy, and I'm fairly good at reading people's characters. And the amazing high vibration from some of our guests really touches my heart. It has many times. I've mentioned it during the show, and it's important for me to express love at the time that I feel it. That's why you'll hear me say what I said to you earlier when there's a guest on. It's just moving my heart, you know. I don't mean every guest we've had, but some of them have been so profound, and I have really grown and expanded from those interactions.
Yeah, as have I, and that's one of the coolest things about doing this is we are able to talk directly with you. Now, it's great to read a book and to hear someone's account or story or whatever. It's also great to listen to conversations just like this, right? Or even more so when we have guests. But what's the icing on the cake is when you get to talk to the people directly and ask them questions, and I feel like I get a heck of a lot more out of that than I ever would just like reading a book or listening to a conversation as a fly on the wall, as it were. So that's got to be the single best thing about doing this.
Oh, yeah, for me it is. I'll tell you something interesting. I don't know if you've noticed this, that when we're interviewing the guest, I feel that energy, but when I rewatch the show, it's still there, but it's not as pronounced or immediate as when we're in the moment and co-creating something. It's so amazing. Have you noticed that too?
I have, yeah. Well, there's something to that, and this goes back to right at the beginning of our conversation, and the things that Chantal was talking about in her conversation that was completely independent of this one, but there's a connection that happens. Now, it does happen more so when you're actually in the same room, but it can and does happen through the screens, and I've definitely noticed that all of them. For sure. Now, I don't know if there's definitely there's a muted element to it when like we're watching it back, as it were. And for the folks who are tuning in after the fact, I don't know if that unseen element is coming through. But for us, or for me personally, that's another very powerful thing too.
Wow, absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth doing this whole journey with you just for that, Mike. So beautiful.
Yeah. So okay. I mean, what I'm discovering is that I'm a lot more talkative than I give myself credit for. And what I've noticed too, because I was talking with a friend just yesterday, we ended up talking for 3 freaking hours.
Wow.
Pretty much like, this is like, wow, I didn't record it, of course, but it was like, and we didn't talk exclusively about this. We talked about all kinds of stuff, but I was just like, wow, it was like a podcast episode. So I guess when I've talked about it in the past, I'm a quiet guy. I am. It depends. You got to ask the right questions, or the right topic has to be there, and then I just won't shut the hell up.
I love that. It's a good dynamic for this show.
So, anywho, anything else before we? Well, let's say always, anything else before we sort of really ended up here?
No, I think this has been a good episode. I'll rewatch this and probably enjoy it myself. So I know we've gone all over the place in some ways, but it's because the topic's so broad and there's so much interconnectivity between the related topics. And your friend mentioned that in the video earlier that we played, interdisciplinary perspectives from different people, that she was talked about the lawyer coming along. We need all these perspectives because the topic is so broad. So I just want to keep exploring all those facets of what we're exploring here. Awesome.
Yeah, and on that same note, like one of the person that I was talking about is very much into the financial world and things like that. And I think because we're doing this show, that person is really a lot more involved in this conversation or topic, as it were, than before. And what I'm noticing is there's a lot of people from the private sectors who are getting into this as well, which is great. Different perspectives, different questions, and things like that. But also, I forgot to touch upon the business element of ufology real quick, since it's surfacing now. I'm also cognizant that there are people out there who are really more into making a business out of it. And I'll tell you right, as someone who, like, if I wanted to make more dollars, I wouldn't be doing a podcast about ET.
Neither would I.
I do a podcast about investing or real estate or trading or whatever, but certainly not this topic. But it's not a good business model. If you're looking if you're looking to make money, ET is not the way to go down, unless you can create the technology that will give you the return on the investment. But other than that, it's just not a business model in any means. But with that said, I don't know how I got off into that little tangent.
That was good, though.
But I wanted to just toss it out there. Oh, the other thing is, this is a whole nother episode for the future. I want to talk about money specifically, and control and power, because I think a lot of that's the root of why there's the people who want the disclosure, which disclosure's already happened. Oh my God, it's happened so many freaking times already. It's happened over and over and over again. But for whatever reason, it didn't happen the way people wanted it to, and it's not, I don't think, ever going to, because of the control aspect and the financial aspect of it, which we could talk about in a whole episode all unto itself. So
yeah, I'd like that. I'd find that interesting, Mike.
Okay, cool. And I don't know. I'll throw this out there too. I'd like to bring someone from the oil industry into our conversation, but if we do, they would be anonymous, much like Citizen D in the crop circles, because whoever I might be talking about probably wouldn't want to associate their identity with this conversation, but I do want to open it up. You know what I mean? It's like, get the perspective, like how do we transition from the fossil fuels to this alleged, free energy technology that ET seems to bring? And
I see. Yeah.
And that's where now you're seeing the money connection too, and why nobody wants to let that go. Like, if I'm an oil baron and my whole, generations are based on that. Anywho, I think you kind of get the idea there. We'll see what happens.
Mike. Yeah, I want to talk about that one because I've mentioned it before. I wondered if the Tesla vehicles had the intention of bringing the 0-point energy, the over unity energy eventually. I wondered if that was Musk's intention. Yes, so I want to get into all that.
Interesting stuff. So we'll see if I can make that happen. And just to toss it out there too, I want to make this public as well. You and I had a couple of conversations, or we were gearing up to have recording dates set with two different prominent people from Silicon Valley. And we got to the point, I think, on both of them where we had dates set, and then for whatever reason, we never got to actually have those conversations. So if either of those two folks or anyone else from Silicon Valley is wanting to have join us in this conversation, please do. I mean, I really want to open this up to all, because this topic touches every facet of everything that we are. And reminder, calling all atheists, we're still open to talking with atheists legitimately about this topic, what y'all think about it too. So hopefully we're creating a mix of everything on this channel. That was the whole goal from the beginning. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's in line with Chantal was talking about too.
Yeah. So at that, I guess we'll say farewell for now. We'll be back soon. And as always, thanks for subscribing. Hit the subscribe button, please. We've gotten so far, and now we got a little hurdle we got to get to. So help us get through that hurdle and hit that subscribe button. Like us, share us, comment, and tell us anything that you want to know, whether that's publicly or privately. You can always reach out. Our email is listed in the About section on the YouTube page, and I'm pretty sure audio only everywhere. Wherever you find us, you're going to see all that same information. So reach out. If you want to join the conversation, as long as you are going to be ET based. We're open to anyone and everything about this topic.
Absolutely endorse that comment, Mike. Much love to everyone out there.
See you real soon.
Woke up this morning, turned on my TV set. There in living color was something I can't forget. This man was preaching at me, laying on the charm, asking me for 20 with 10,000 on his arm. He wore designer clothing, had a big smile on his face, selling me salvation while they sang Amazing Grace, asking me for money when he had all the signs well. Well, I almost wrote a check out, but then I asked myself, would he wear a pinky ring? Would he drive a fancy car? Would his wife wear furs and diamonds? Would his dressing room have a star? If he came back tomorrow, there's something I'd like to know. Could you tell me, would Jesus wear a Rolex on his television show? Would Jesus be political if he came back to earth? Have a second home in Palm Springs and try to hide his worth? Take money from the poor folk when he came back again, and admit he's talked to all those preachers that say they can talk and take care. Would he wear a pinky ring? Would he drive a fancy car? Would his wife wear furs and diamonds? Or would his dressing room have a star? If he came back tomorrow, there's one thing I'd like to know. Could you tell me, would Jesus wear a Rolex? Jesus wear a Rolex? Would Jesus wear a Rolex on his television show?